Relationship building. Relationships are critically important to building your network, getting to know your colleagues, and really building a supportive culture around you. And today in this workshop, we'll talk about how do you build the best types of relationships. We're going to cover where to start because sometimes we don't even know where to begin in terms of how do I connect with somebody who I've never spoken to before. And maybe they work in the office next to me and I've never had the opportunity because of COVID. How do I create a habit of building these relationships? Because no matter where you are within the organization, you really want to have different relationships, be it with vendors, be it with colleagues, be it with attorneys, however it is for you. It's all about relationships, what happens internally. And then planning and preparing. So let's say, for example, you want to get to know a colleague or a vendor. How do you prepare for that so that you know who they are in advance of your meeting with them? And then following up. So we'll talk about what it is to follow up and the kinds of next steps you want to see. Now, developing a habit around relationship building is really important. 9 out of 10 conversations are based on personal recommendations. So if I know that so and so is really, really approachable and nice, that's going to be a conversation. So if I know that so and so is really a very good and supportive paralegal, I'm going to refer her if we're looking for additional employee. No. 9 out of 10 conversations are based on personal recommendations, and that can happen internally as well as externally. But let's just say your firm is hiring right now and you know a paralegal who is looking for work. If that paralegal that you've worked with is an awesome person, you're going to make that recommendation. That happens both externally and internally. So understand that many of the conversations that we have are really based on personal recommendations. And in practice, 92% of buyers trust referrals from people they know. So if you're referring somebody either to work at your firm or you're referring a vendor that you've worked with in the past, it's probably because you had a great relationship with them. So one of the things I'd like you to think about is who do you know and who do you need to know in order to build a strong referral network? Referral networks happen because of what happens where you're working and also where you're not working, where you might go to a hair salon and somebody's like, hey, I need a great hairdresser. That's a referral. Referrals happen all the time and they will help you grow in your work. They will help you grow in your life. So think about the referrals that you use right now and who you might want to have refer. Think about who you know already and who you need to know in order to think about now, who do you know and who do you need to know in order to build a strong referral network? And those referral networks, they do happen internally, but I also see them happening within departments where somebody wants to switch into, let's say, IT from another department. And if they know the people, then it makes those transfers much easier. So internal and external networking is important. When to start doing relationship building and business development, depending on where you are within your firm. Just know that excuses are not going to help you build your connections. You need to be committed to building relationships. And we often use excuses. We all do. I do too. I'm too busy. I never have enough time. Nobody wants to talk to me now, anyways, because they're too busy. And I'm sure you can come up with a million other excuses. But think about building relationships and building business development, kind of like brushing your teeth. You do it every day, and it should become a habit that you don't even need to think about. You just want to build and grow your network and get to know the people around you and the people that are perhaps your vendors as well. So you want to think about it as simply as a habit that you have and not put too much extra thought into it. It just becomes natural for you. And the way I like to think about building new neural pathways, and this is where we dive into neuroscience a little bit, is like this. Say, for example, you are used to riding on a very, very windy road, like on the image you see on the right-hand side. it takes a lot of thought to get from point A to point B because all those pathways are all crisscrossed all over the place. And you're like, should I get off at this exit or that exit, or this exit or that exit? That's the way it is when you're starting to build a new neural pathway. It's not comfortable, it's not easy, it's a little bit confusing even. But once you start to get into the habit of doing the same thing over and over and over again, all that clutter clears out and you have a nice clean path to get from point A to point B. And in your brain, it works like that too, where you have all these little, your wiring is all crisscrossed when you're developing a new behavior. But the more you do that behavior, the smoother it gets. And then it's easier to navigate wherever you're going. So I want you to think about building a habit around relationship building or business development, just like that. Just like I'm going to do one thing a day and then I'm going to tie it into something I'm already doing, like having a cup of coffee in the morning, and I'm going to send an email saying, hey, it would be great to get together for a coffee. And if the more that you do that, the more easily it becomes. And it's not even something you have to think about, it just happens. Another way to make relationship building and business development a priority is by putting it into your calendar. Creating these habits is so helpful. And it takes away the excuse of I'm too busy. So even if you just put it in once or twice a week where you want to do relationship building or business development, maybe for an hour a week, you just drop it into your calendar and that way it's there and you're like, okay, I'm going to reach out to so and so today because it's on my calendar. And that's a way of making it a priority and getting rid of all those excuses. Because believe me, from my experience in working with people, the first thing they want to do is their work, right? It takes a lot to do your work, but it's also really important to build connection. And so building it into your calendar is a very good way of doing that. Habits are not sustained by willpower, wishes, or procrastination. I love that statement because it's so very true. The calendar that you see in front of you with the red X marks on it, I actually took from the comedian Jerry Seinfeld. And what he did was he said, I'm going to write a joke every single day of the week, and I'm not going to miss a day. I'm going to really make it so that I hit every single day. I'm going to write a joke. And he marks off his calendar right after he writes his joke to build this habit. So think about, do you have a habit that you can build into your calendar as well? And the way that it's thought about often is that these types of habits are developed over time and they really do last forever. So if you read every day, you become a reader. If you ride a bike every day, you become a biker. And if you do relationship building or business development every week, you become a rainmaker, you become a relationship networker. And relationship networking is really about building connections with people that you haven't had before and strengthening relationships with people that you haven't had before. So thinking about the different places where you can meet the right people, or where internally you have a lot of new people that have been onboarded into the firm and you've never met them before. This is the opportunity to take a look and say, hey, you know what? We've got 20 people that were just onboarded, new associates, new partners, new paralegals, new executive assistants, and I don't know anybody. So maybe I'm going to make it a priority to start building these connections and these relationships because they do turn into great opportunities, either when you need support, when you need advice, or just when you want to vent. So in your area of interest and expertise, think about, are there people that have come into your department that you've never met before? Are there other new attorneys that came on board? Are there new assistants that have come on board? Are you working with any new vendors, anybody in IT at the firm that you have to work with, like you don't know? Same thing with accounting. Like think about who you would really benefit from connecting with and learning about, and that's an opportunity for you. So try to look internally to see who you haven't met before and who you would benefit from getting to know. Now, when you're meeting with people, we're often really formal about how we get together. And I'm all for meeting for coffee, having virtual meetings, it's all fine. But I also think it's nice when you can find common interests. So as you develop these connections and as you develop these relationships, think about, well, can we do anything else? So can we have lunch together? Now, I love the picture on the left because it's very assumptive that this person is, cutting somebody else's food. They obviously know each other really well, but they're having a good time and they're getting to know each other. So that's one thing. The picture that you see on the right hand side is actually me with a client and my son just going skiing for a day. What I'm really getting at is that you can meet somebody and start a little breakfast club at your office to say, hey, we're all working maybe a hybrid work schedule. Why don't we meet for breakfast once a week and get to know each other better? Find out ways and find ideas that can really help you solidify and build these connections. Before you meet somebody new, one of my suggestions, and I think it's really helpful, is to do a little bit of pre-work. It doesn't take a long time, but get to know who you're going to meet and why do you want to meet this person? Is it important to know who is working in accounting? Is it important to know who's working in IT? Is it important to know who's at the front desk when you're coming into the office? Like, are these things important? Is it important to know the paralegals, the HR department, whoever it is? And then think about what you want to ask when you get to sit down. When you do some pre-work, you can look on LinkedIn, you can look at their company bios and see who they are and really have some place to start your conversation. And then after you sit down with them, and again, even if it's a colleague, it's nice to have a follow-up plan, what you want to say next. And then think about, what did I learn about this person? What was that a benefit to me? Wasn't it? Because you don't want to waste your time either. You want to make sure that the relationships that you're building and the connections that you're growing are going to be of benefit to you. So think about, was that a worthwhile use of my time? And just reflect on that for a little minute before you move on to your next task. So always have a follow-up schedule. Like if you're meeting with somebody and they're like looking for a great restaurant in Denver and you know one, and you'd say, "Hey, I'm going to send you to this restaurant." Do what you say you're going to do. It's going to help really build your reliability as a connection. After a meeting, write down everything that you learned and put it into a little file. Like so and so has two kids, or they have a dog, they like camping, and whatever it is, they don't like beets, whatever it is. And then think about, when do you want to connect with them again? Maybe you just want to reach out in a few more months and say, hey, it was great getting to know you. Let's go for a walk. So those are ways to have follow-up built into your connection plan when you're meeting with somebody. And so if you're in business development or you're looking to grow your practice, maybe you're an associate, or maybe you are working in a department that you need to meet other vendors, or there's a paralegal association that you're part of, and you want to meet other paralegals. Ask yourself, what do you want to get out of the meeting? What do you want to walk away with? Do you want to walk away with the name of somebody else? Do you want to walk away with a resource for if you need to hire more people for your firm? Like, think about what it is that you want from the meeting. Do your research on LinkedIn or Google. LinkedIn has everybody's on LinkedIn, so it's a great place to look and see where somebody went to school or who they follow, and it's an instant place to connect with somebody. So very often it's like, what are we going to talk about? But if you go on LinkedIn in advance and take a look, then you already have a place to start. And then you might want to put a list of questions together as to what you want to ask, just so that you're prepared. Some people are very introverted or very uncomfortable meeting new people, and it helps them just to have a few questions jotted down to warm them up and get them started. I like this little clip about being prepared to know who you are meeting. Actually, on this clip, you can watch it on YouTube. I have the link here on the bottom, and it's a really fun little clip. Let me see if I can make it work for you. And that's why it's really good to know who you're meeting because it takes the awkward out of it. And that's why it's really good to know who you're meeting because it takes the awkward out of it. Here I have an example of a client of mine that I looked up on LinkedIn. I've been working with this client for about 5 years. And when I took a look at his profile, I saw that he studied journalism in University of New Mexico. And I was laughing because I've known him for so long and I studied journalism too. And this was something that we could have talked about multiple times, like why he chose journalism and why I did as well. And it would have brought us, um, it would have made our conversation that much easier the first time that we had met. So that's where doing a little bit of research before you meet anybody is helpful. Now, if you're meeting with a company or a vendor or an organization that you want to learn more about, I always recommend that you set your Google to alert you when there's anything new that's happening with that organization. And you can do that in Google Alerts. And LinkedIn also has a notification section. So that's another way in which you can be up to date, and it always gives you a reason to connect back with somebody as well, especially if it's through a company that you're getting to know them. You may also find that there's people that you want to get to know that are not part of your existing network, and you'd like to meet. And so, knowing people who are connected to others that you want to meet with, asking for referrals is the way to go about that. And it's really easy. All you have to say is, "Hey, can you make this introduction for me?" And boom, you've built a connection, you've built a relationship. To recap what we covered, think again before you meet with people, think about who you want to meet with, create a habit, have a place to start your conversation by doing your research, build those relationships, and then follow up with what you say you're going to follow up with. Try to schedule some virtual coffees, enter in entered into LinkedIn, connect on LinkedIn, keep a spreadsheet or a CRM of who you're meeting so you can keep track of it, and build these quality relationships because these are relationships that will lead to opportunities for yourself, for others, and you can also help others along the way, which is the bonus of building relationships. Thank you, everybody.